Joining me live in the studio is the Assistant Defence Minister Matt Thistlethwaite. Big news, Julian Assange on his way home. What do you make of it?
G'day, Kieran. There's only a little bit I can say. Obviously, it's still subject to court proceedings, and I understand that Julian Assange is on his way to the United States, and there'll be further court proceedings. But the government's been pretty clear since we've been elected that the Prime Minister's reiterated on a number of occasions that we believe that matter's gone on for too long and should be brought to an end. And we'll wait and see what happens with the court proceedings.
And the PM has made representations to the President down on these matters as well, that enough was enough, essentially. Yeah,
the Prime Minister has been standing up for Australians, really. He stood up for Sean Turnell, he stood up for Chung Lei, and he has been advocating on behalf of Julian Assange, as has a number of government MPs and senators, as well as MPs and senators from other parties. We had that multi-partisan delegation that went to the United States that included Barnaby Joyce and members of the Greens and members of the government. So we'll wait and see. The court proceedings have got to run their course, but we'll wait and see what happens.
Not everyone in that group, as you alluded to, are supportive or have been supportive of what Julian Assange has done previously, but the view was that he has, regardless, served enough time anyway.
Well, the government's been pretty clear in saying that this has gone on for too long, and that the matter should be brought to a conclusion. And we'll wait.
There's a broad range of opinion, though, in Parliament and outside of it. Those that essentially deify Assange as a warrior for freedom of speech and press freedom,
yeah,
and those that think he put the lives of servicemen and women in danger.
Yeah, I mean, there's different views in the community about his actions, not only in Australia but across the world. But we've been pretty clear that we think that the matter's gone on for too long and should be brought to a head, and hopefully that's what's going to happen in the next few days.
But you need to tread carefully in the meantime.
Yeah, well, we don't want to jeopardise any court proceedings. What happens between him and his legal team and the United States legal system is a matter for him. Obviously, there's plenty of commentary around about it at the moment, and there's reporting. That's understandable, but certainly, as a minister in the government, we don't want to jeopardise any proceedings.
Yeah, and it looks like the government taking every precaution with Stephen Smith on the High Commissioner to the UK on board that flight with Julian Assange as well. So wanting to make sure that he sees him returned home.
Yeah, that's a role of a High Commissioner. The Australian government has been providing consular assistance to Julian Assange and his family, as we do for any other Australian that finds themselves in a situation where they're engaged with the legal system in another country. So Stephen Smith's doing his job and doing it well.
On a few other matters, the nuclear debate. Let me start. I know you're Assistant Defence Minister. I'll ask you about the AUKUS questions that were put yesterday in Parliament. But what's been the reaction to this policy? Because the polling suggests that quite a few Australians are open to having this debate. Is that what you've heard from your constituents in Kingsford Smith?
Well, my constituents are opposed to the policy because my constituents want strong action on climate change and they want it to occur now. The thing with the opposition's policy is you're not talking about nuclear energy coming online for another 15 years, and we simply don't have that time to wait. We simply don't have enough time. So we need to make sure that we're making that transition away from fossil fuels to renewables as quickly as possible. And this government, when we were elected, we legislated the net zero guidelines and the plan, and we're meeting that, and we've got all the policies in place.
So there's no cohort in your seat that has any support for this?
Well, I've got to say, most of the email correspondence that I receive about it and the feedback that I get is that people aren't supportive of the proposal because it's too costly, it'll take too long, and it will mean that people's power bills will go up because we all know that nuclear energy is much more expensive to produce than renewables.
Finally, on the vaping issue, out of pharmacies, but the pharmacies don't sound like they're too pleased to be the ones selling the vapes. Has the government consulted enough on this?
We think we have. We've consulted widely. That's why it's taken a bit of time to get this to the Parliament. I'm a parent with 4 girls. One of my biggest fears is vaping. And they tell me, and you hear it around from other parents, that vaping is prolific in schools, amongst teenagers. And we want to make sure that we're reducing that incidence of teenagers getting hooked on vapes and then, in some cases, moving to cigarettes. So the reforms that we're putting in place ensure that medical professionals are involved and that vapes really go back to their original intent, and that is a diversion from people smoking cigarettes and trying to quit. And that was backed by medicine and backed by science. We want to get back to that original intent.
And yeah, well, hopefully it does have the desired impact, because it's a scourge, isn't it? You see it all right up and down the nation with school kids getting hooked on it. Thank you, Matt Thistlethwaite. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.